Hey, what is up, Fourth Down Fiasco? My name is Madison, and I am dropping in to talk about everything draft drama for this NFL draft that just happened last week. We're talking about situations ranging from the Isaiah Bond situation all the way to interesting information about some of these top 10 draft picks. So I hope you enjoy, and the boys will be back next week. Alright, so the first topic that I have here is disconcerting draftees. And we are starting out with the Isaiah Bond situation. Trigger warning for sexual assault, sexual violence. Getting into the early life of Isaiah Bond, he was born and raised in Buford, Georgia. He excelled in his high school career as a dual sport athlete in football and track and field. Bond excelled both athletically and academically in college. He was a key offensive weapon for both Alabama and Texas. He was projected to be drafted very high in this draft, and honestly, I was shocked that he wasn't. Please note that I'm reading this information off of the official affidavit. I have opinions, you have opinions, the NFL drafting office has opinions, but there's not been a trial yet. So I just wanted to make note of that. Isaiah Bond continues to maintain his innocence and has since sued his accuser. On April 10th, 2025, Bond turned himself in for an outstanding warrant of sexual assault. He posted bond at $25,000 and was released from custody. I couldn't find how long his warrant was outstanding, but it seems like he turned himself in pretty quickly. As reported in the affidavit, officers met with an adult woman who pressed charges against Bond in Dallas on February 6th. It's alleged that Bond messaged the woman on Instagram that he would be in the Frisco area and asked if she would be willing to meet up. Text conversations turned into, at this point, mutual discussions of having sex. Bond made the proposition of engaging in a specific sexual act, and the woman said that she would consider this proposition. The two ended up meeting in person on February 4th, 2025, and started drinking wine. A sexual encounter occurred, and during this interaction, Bond brought up the specific sexual encounter that he had proposed in the text messages. The woman told Bond that she decided she was not comfortable engaging in this, which she has every right to do. The woman states that Bond began engaging in the act anyway, and the woman claims that she asked him to stop while physically pushing him away, and Bond continued this act while covering her mouth. After the encounter, Bond told the woman, "Alcohol makes me do things," while proceeding to ask her to sign an NDA. The woman refused to sign it and left the apartment, which huge props to her for saying no and leaving the apartment. I can't imagine how scary that situation must be. After leaving, you'd think it's over, but it's not. After leaving, there was a text conversation between Bond and the woman. "Isaiah, you were wrong for that. I asked you to stop and you kept covering my mouth. I'm in a lot of pain." To which Bond said, "You want 1,000, I'm really sorry." Which I think he meant, "You want 1,000, I'm really sorries?" Bond sent a separate text, "Would that make you feel better?" Bond then proceeded to offer her money in a text that is not captured word for word in the affidavit. The woman texted, "What, 5K? She sent a separate text, "1K like you asked me to sign, then offer me money? You know what you did, that's why you covered my mouth." The woman later texted him asking for an apology, to which Bond responded, "I did, ... Then the woman responded, "Apologizing by trying to pay me isn't a real apology, Isaiah. You really hurt me, and I kept telling you to stop." To which Bond responded, "I'm sorry." The last thing I'm going to say about this is my heart goes out to the woman who went through this. I hope justice is delivered in any way possible. Moving on to Ollie Gordon II. Born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas, where he was an amazing football player. Getting into the scandal, on June 30th, 2024, Ollie Gordon II was charged with a DUI while under the legal drinking age. Gordon was seen by a state trooper swerving and speeding on Interstate 35 near Oklahoma City. The officer found 2 open bottles of liquor in the vehicle. Gordon refused a field sobriety test, which is his right. He can wait till he gets back to the county jail. by the time they got back to the Cleveland County Jail, he blew a 0.11 blood alcohol content and a 0.10 blood alcohol content. And just note that the legal BAC for drivers that are 21 and over is 0.08. So he was already exceeding, like, if he were a legal driver, and the BAC limit for people who are underage is 0.02. So then, this is my favorite part of the story, this kid didn't have to miss a single game. But don't worry guys, his coach assured the public that he was on a short leash. So I'm sure they have it handled. Coach Gundy said, "I've had 2 or 3 or 4 beers and driven a car plenty of times." So that's good. My personal opinions on this, I really hope that this is a one-time thing. That this kid realizes how lucky he is that he did not cause harm to himself or someone else that night. I couldn't find his draft reaction, so I obviously can't rate it, but I will say he seems really excited about being drafted. I watched his interviews, he seems like a really well-mannered guy. So I do sincerely mean it when I say I hope he's changed. I hope this incident caused a change. So the last person that we're going to talk about in the disconcerting draftees section is Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter grew up in the North Philadelphia neighborhood of Huntington Park. He was taught the ins and outs of football by his father, Christopher Carter, a former linebacker and defensive end at Bloomsburg University. And he has a long list of achievements, but a couple of them are 4-year letterman and team captain at LaSalle College High School. He also led the nation with 24 tackles for loss. He was a semifinalist for the Walter Camp Player of the Year award, and he was named Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year in 2024. So getting into his scandals, on August 8th, 2023, Carter was charged with misdemeanor marijuana possession after the university police responded to a fire alarm in his dorm room. And I just want to say, at this point in the story, I was like, shoot, poor kid, like there's a fire drill and then you get your room searched. That's a bummer. But then I kept reading, and it was determined that the alarm was triggered by Carter smoking. So he confessed to this and surrendered the marijuana to police. The charge was for a small amount, carrying the maximum penalty of 30 days in jail or a $500 fine, which I feel like those are very different options. The university and coach said that the incident was handled internally, which it usually is. Additionally, in June of 2024, Carter faced a more serious charge of misdemeanor assault when he got into an altercation with a tow truck driver. And it's a little bit funny. You have to admit it's a little bit funny. Like, this is a perfectly even keel kid, and then he gets his car towed and he can't take it. The assault did result in a rib fracture for the driver. Carter was accepted into a 1-year accelerated rehabilitative disposition program. I guess this is designed for first-time non-violent offenders. So the successful completion of this program could lead to the dismissal and expungement of the charge. And I tried to look up if, I know that he completed it, but I couldn't figure out if this was expunged from his record or not. You can't punch people. You certainly cannot break their internal bones. Hopefully it was a one-time thing and he's a changed man. Regarding his draft reaction, I give him a 4 because he was well-mannered, but there was no overwhelming excitement or emotion. Now we're gonna get into dominant draftees from the top 10 draft picks. I'm gonna start with Cameron Ward because he was the very first overall pick. Getting into his early life, he was born in West Columbia, Texas. Ward was reported to be an all-around good athlete in both football and basketball. Cam played a wing T offense in high school, which limited his passing stats and caused schools to overlook him. Just looking at some of his achievements, Cam Ward concluded his college football career by setting the NCAA Division I record for career passing touchdowns, achieving his 156th touchdown pass in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. He was also honored as the nation's top quarterback by receiving the Davey O'Brien Award in 2024. Just excited to see what he can deliver for the Titans as a first pick. It's always interesting to see how these top picks shake out because anything can happen in the NFL. Draft reaction, I honestly give him a 2. And I get it because like he probably knew that he was going to be first. But I was bored. There wasn't a ton of excitement or emotion on his end. Next, we're going to talk about Will Campbell. So he is an offensive tackle and was chosen 4th overall by the New England Patriots. Just touching on Will's early life, he was born and raised in Monroe, Louisiana. Will grew up in a family that was centered around football. His dad, Brian Campbell, played football in college and just was a huge inspiration to Will. Will earned a 5-star recruit status in high school for his performance as a right and left tackle. Campbell grew up as an LSU fan, so he was ecstatic to be able to play for them, which is really cool. He's got a long list of achievements, a couple of them being first team All-American honors, SEC Jacobs blocking trophy, and he was a Lombardi Award finalist. Personal opinions, this is just a kid that you want to root for. You know, he's a beast on the field, he's excelling academically, he's very well-mannered and humble while still acknowledging how hard he worked to get to this position. We were worried that he was going to drop significantly in this draft class, which I guess you could argue he did drop because he didn't go top 3, but at the combine, his arms measured at 32 5/8 inches, and I guess scouts typically want to see 33 inches. As a casual, I think that's stupid. So we'll see if that ends up being a problem for him, having slightly shorter arms than other guys in the league. Draft reaction is a 10. He was smiling like crazy when his name got called, and then when the interview asked him, what's behind that smile? He just broke down. He's just sobbing and said that he's worked his entire life for this moment. So it was very cool moment for him. Next, we're going to talk about Mason Graham. So Mason Graham is a defensive tackle. He was drafted 5th overall by the Cleveland Browns. He was born and raised in California, introduced to sports at a young age. At 4 years old, he was already showing a natural talent for physical play at his soccer matches. The kid was engaging in rough contact with opponents to the point where his coaches suggested to his parents, like, hey, maybe football is a better fit for this guy. Graham excelled as a 2-way starter in high school, playing both the defensive line and the offensive tackle. He's got a lot of achievements. A couple of them is the Los Angeles Times High School Football Player of the Year, Max Preps All-American, and the Rose Bowl Defensive MVP. Based on what I've read, I expect him to dominate in the NFL. And draft rating 3, because he wasn't emotional, or he didn't even really seem that excited. I'm sure he was, but I think it was the GM called him. They're like, you ready to be back in Buckeye country? And he's just like, I guess so. Yeah, I guess. Can't blame the kid. I mean, he just gotten out of Michigan. It'd be interesting to see what he does. Next on the list, we got Ashton Jeanty. He is a running back. He was chosen 6th overall by the Las Vegas Raiders. So pray for him. Born in Jacksonville, Florida, Jeanty, having a military family, meant that he would be moving around a lot, even getting to live in Naples, Italy, which is pretty sick. This provided him with a diverse culture of experience and a strong sense of discipline and structure. He played high school football in Italy as a quarterback for a very short time before transitioning to the running back position. In 2019, Ashton moved to Frisco, Texas to be closer to relatives as his dad prepared for retirement. Transitioning back to football in the States did not come without its challenges, though. He was placed behind a lot of upperclassmen on the depth chart. Regardless, he played defensive positions and special teams, showing his commitment to helping the team in whatever way he could. By his senior year, he'd become the team's primary running back. His senior year, he rushed for over 1,800 yards and 41 touchdowns. He's received all-state honors. He was a Heisman Trophy finalist. Just incredible athlete. And I just really like Genty. I was really hoping by some miracle the Broncos would get him. Delusion. He's such a great player. And from what I've read, his teammates and even opponents really have nothing but great things to say about him. Draft reaction is a 7 because he was beaming. And when he gets selected, he's just so pumped. And you cannot fake that kind of joy for the Raiders. You know what I mean? That comes from the heart and soul. Lastly, for the dominant draftees section, we got Teteroa McMillan. He is a wide receiver who was drafted 8th overall by the North Carolina Panthers. And he was born in Hawaii. His family moved to Southern California when he was 1. He attended Severite High School in Anaheim, California, where he excelled as a dual sport athlete, which is more like a tri-sport athlete because he did football, basketball, and volleyball. He's got a lot of achievements, including in volleyball, he set a school record for kills. He was the Polynesian College Football Player of the Year and the Walter Camp Second Team All-American 2024. And I included him just because I saw a lot of draft projections before the draft happened that he would go first. And I was just interested to know more about him. Draft reaction, 6. He looks excited, he's smiling, but nothing crazy. For this next section, I'm going to talk about 3 athletes. Just quick highlights of them. I didn't go deep into their story, but I just thought that they were interesting. Wanted to mention a couple of facts about them. The first one is Tez Johnson. So he's a wide receiver that was drafted 235th overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Johnson was unofficially adopted by Bo Nix's family at the age of 15 after facing many difficulties in his life. Digging into his background, his father died by suicide when he was an infant, and he just grew up around a lot of violence and neglect, unfortunately. Tez's mother recognized her son's need for a safer, more stable environment, which led to her agreeing to what was supposed to be a temporary arrangement with the Nix family. Tez talks about entering the Nix home and seeing the family gathered around the table for dinner. He said he felt a connection immediately and knew he didn't want to leave. So that's just a sweet story, and there's a lot more that you can read about it. He followed Bo to college, and still it's like his second family, and I just thought it was interesting. Tez getting drafted was somewhat surprising, at least to me, because he's only 5'10" and he only weighs, on a good day, 165 pounds. But during the combine, he weighed in at 154 pounds. This would make him the lightest player to participate in the combine. And on the other extreme end of the weight scale, the next person I'm going to talk about is Desmond Watson. He is a defensive tackle who was signed as an undrafted free agent by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The most notable thing about Desmond Watson is just his physique. He's standing at 6'6" tall and weighing 464 pounds. He's the heaviest player in NFL history, you guys. Despite his weight, he showcased impressive athleticism at Florida. His 40-yard dash was 5.93 seconds. I don't know what to compare that to. That sounds fast to me for somebody of that physique. It'll be interesting to see how he performs in the NFL. Just wanted to make note of that. And the last one for this section is Caleb Lawner. So he is a tight end that was drafted 141st overall by the Denver Broncos. And he was previously at BYU, Baylor, and the Utah Utes doing basketball. Kid didn't touch a football till his last year of college, and he got drafted. Isn't that insane? Launer started college at University of Utah with the intention of playing basketball, which is exactly what he did for 4 years as a BYU Cougar and a Baylor Bear. In 2024, he decided to switch sports at the collegiate level and started as a tight end for Utah Utes. And this kid's total of 12 football games in all of high school, all of college, he had 4 receptions, 54 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 2-point conversion. That's pretty wild. The Broncos are excited to see what they can mold out of this kid with just the talent that he's shown so far. Our next topic is the CU Golden Children. So in this, I'm going to be talking about obviously Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, because there is a lot of lore here. So, Travis Hunter, he was selected 2nd overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is crazy. I don't want to say nobody, I would say most people did not expect him to get picked that high. I know Danny Weber did not expect him to get picked that high. So Travis Hunter was born in West Palm Beach, Florida, and spent his high school years in Georgia. He's got a really intriguing story. So in high school, he lived with an assistant football coach at Collins Hill High School for 2 years. I read that the reason for this, why he was living with his coach, is because Hunter's mom initially moved to Georgia in search of better opportunities. So the family was reportedly facing financial challenges around the time of the move. They were staying in friends' houses and different hotels, and Travis said that he recognized his need for stability and consistency. He asked his coach if he could live with him. The assistant coach is also largely credited for Hunter's personal and athletic development. His coach was like, you gotta wake up on time for school, you gotta get yourself up, you gotta finish your homework before you do, leisurely activities. He's got a ton of achievements. He most notably is the Heisman Trophy winner in 2024. He is also AP College Football Player of the Year, a 2-time Paul Hornung Award, which recognizes the nation's most versatile player, and he was a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year in 2024. There's a lot to get into here. And before I give any of my opinions on this topic, I need to state I am not a CU fan. So I need you to know that. I'm really trying to look at all the different perspectives on this. But I like Travis Hunter. He's had some diva comments that I will get into, but above all, I like the kid. Love him or hate him, he's performed in high school and college at a very high level. And he was good enough to get drafted number 2 overall. So, just a really smart, driven guy academically. He majored in anthropology, and throughout college, he maintained no lower than a 3.79 GPA. One story I remember really well about Hunter in the 2023 season was when CU and CSU were facing off, and there was honestly a pretty dirty hit by Henry Blackburn on Hunter. It was a late hit. For some of you who still think I'm biased, I was rooting for CSU in this game. That's our home team. This hit led to Hunter being hospitalized with a lacerated liver. This obviously draws national attention, and I just remember the hatred that was pointed at Blackburn. Yeah, if I'm Hunter, I'm gonna join in. Kid lacerated my liver, which I looked up, that means torn. He tore his liver. However, Hunter and Blackburn met in person and reconciled. They spent time together, getting to know each other, playing video games, and they even faced off in a friendly bowling match where each player contributed $1,000 to charity. Hunter won, but still allowed Blackburn to choose the recipient, the charity recipient. No matter how you twist this story, Hunter did this kid a huge favor by being a good sport. Hunter emphasized the importance of forgiveness in the media, saying football is just a game at the end of the day. The night before he was drafted, he was looking at houses in Jacksonville, which he said he just had a feeling. So I just had a feeling that I might be going there. I think he probably definitely knew that they were picking him. The audio of the GM talking about why they chose him is just objectively funny.
Of the game itself, right? Its capacity to ignite belief, right? Belief in ourselves, belief in others, right? Belief in achieving what many may deem impossible. Travis Hunter, he embodies belief, right? He's a rare person. He's a rare player, but he's also a reminder that the boundaries of the game of football were built to be challenged.
Okay. Okay, can't argue with that guy. Hunter has expressed his desire to be both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball in the NFL, and when asked about the possibility of being drafted for only one position, he replied, "Call Coach Prime," which I guess means no. I understand the argument that maybe he can't excel in one position if his attention is divided. Some other controversies, I don't even know if you could call this a controversy, just funny. Former NFL cornerback Richard Sherman called Hunter bland, I guess in an interview or something, and just talked about how he doubts his capacity to play both sides of the ball, and Hunter responded by wearing a t-shirt that says bland. I just think that's funny. Hunter has also made comments about his offensive line that he had at CU, saying they can't block for nothing. I mean, this definitely isn't a good look to talk poorly about your teammates, but for what it's worth, CU's offensive line is notably bad. I would rank his draft reaction a 6.5 because he was obviously super excited. He had a big smile, but he also knew what was going to happen, you know, and I think that takes away some of the emotion. Next, we got Mr. Shedeur Sanders. He was drafted 144th overall, so he was 6th in the 5th round. He's a quarterback that got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. We're gonna get into his draft, but first I want to talk about his early life. He was born in Tyler, Texas, to Pro Football Hall of Fame cornerback Deion Sanders and mom Pillar Sanders. Shedeur was raised in a sports-centric environment from a young age. Shedeur attended Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas, where Deion served as the offensive coordinator. Initially committing to Florida Atlantic University, which I didn't know that, Shedeur flipped his commitment to Jackson State University after his father was appointed as the head coach, which you'll notice a theme here. He then transferred to CU at the end of 2022 after Deion was appointed as the Buffs head coach. Shedeur was immediately named the starting QB for the team. Regardless of how you feel about this kid, the Sanders name has helped him a lot. And it's helped him get a lot of different opportunities. However, it may also be the reason why he was drafted so low. And we'll get into that. A couple of his achievements. He is currently, statistically, the most accurate college quarterback in history. He holds the all-time record for career completion percentage at 71.8%. He set a school record by passing for 510 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 45-42 victory against TCU. Let's get into the controversies, shall we? Regarding the draft, Shedeur had a very cocky quote that I think rubbed a lot of people the wrong way before the draft had started. He said, "We went from Jackson State to Colorado and changed 2 programs back to back." The "we" referring to him and his dad. "You don't think I could come to an NFL franchise and change a program again? It's history. It's always going to repeat itself." I don't like it, and it's very egotistical, and as many good qualities that Deion instilled in his kids, I think he really missed the humble part, unfortunately, and it's an extremely tall order to change the DNA of a professional NFL team. I don't know what kind of change he is talking about. Like, it's one thing to say that you're going to be an incredible quarterback for the NFL, but saying that you're going to change an NFL program, I don't even understand what he's envisioning for that. Sanders also skipped mandatory meetings to attend a fashion show in Paris, This was signed off by Dion. Dion has made statements that there are certain teams that he would not allow his son to play at in the NFL. And just the arrogance rolling off of that sentence is crazy. I honestly think that it sucks that Shedeur got picked so low, because I do think he's going to outperform at least a couple of quarterbacks that got picked before him. But I do understand teams not wanting to deal with Dion. You know, just not wanting to answer to him every single time they need to bench him, or every single time they make a decision that he doesn't agree with. Dion has even tweeted at people saying, "My son is getting drafted in the first round. What's your son doing?" I don't want to get too deep into it, but as I mentioned before, the CU offensive line was very, very bad, which debatably is at least a part of the reason why Shedeur got drafted so low, because a very, very bad offensive line leads to sacks, which Shedeur has taken a lot of at CU. And as a scout, you're typically not going to dig into the reason why a quarterback is getting sacked. You're not going to dig into if it's their fault. It falls on them. And I believe that reason, along with his family name, is a big reason why he was picked so late in the draft. I'm not saying his ego doesn't play a role in it, but like, let's be real, the NFL is happy to look the other way. You know, I don't think that some of his comments early in the draft is what set everybody off. I really don't. Another note from the draft drama here, Jax Ulbrich, I think is how it's pronounced. He's the 21-year-old son of Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. I hope I said that right. Jax got Sanders' number from his father's iPad and pretended to be New Orleans Saints GM Mickey Loomis. He was pranking Shedeur to think that he had been drafted. The NFL fined the Falcons for $250,000, and the defensive coordinator had to pay $100,000 of that for failing to keep Sanders' information private. So if you're having a bad day, or your kid is terrible, at least he didn't cost you $100,000. You gotta look at the bright side. My advice to Shedeur, in the cleaned up words of Britney Spears, you better work, sis. I really do want to see him perform well. And I want to see him perform well outside of his father's shadow. I feel like, as disappointing as the draft was for him, he really took it in stride. And he had a great attitude about it. The videos I saw, he's like, "It's fine, we'll get it tomorrow. It's fine, we'll get it tomorrow. It's fine, we'll get it," you know, like, I feel like that's tough to do. It's tough to fake, even though he probably was really disappointed. And his draft reaction, I'm giving him a 9, because I expected to either not be able to find this video, or I thought that he was just not gonna care about it. He was so excited. He was reacting, honestly, like how a round 1 pick, I would imagine that they would react. He was surrounded by family and friends. It was just really wholesome. Is Madison from the future here? I realized that I completely forgot to talk about the CU board making the decision to retire Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders jerseys. And I wanted to touch on this because it's such a crazy decision to retire a player's jersey while they are literally still on the college campus. There are players that have won a championship for CU that have debatably performed a lot better in their football careers at CU than both of those boys did, and they haven't gotten their jersey retired yet. Yeah, it would feel like a slap in the face. How I understand it is, I think Dion knows that once he is no longer a coach for CU, it will not be a priority for CU to retire their jerseys, and I think he's trying to do it now. And that's not even necessarily the boys' fault, but it's another controversy that surrounds them. For the end of this episode, we are gonna get into the segment Beyond the Pick, and these are just the stories that are bigger than football. We'll say that. The first one I want to talk about is just a wholesome The first one I want to talk about is Benjamin Morrison. So he's a cornerback that was drafted 53rd overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I just wanted to give Benjamin an honorable mention because if you haven't watched his draft reaction, you need to. It was my favorite. He's just sobbing, like he can't even talk. He's sobbing so much. And just surrounded by his family and friends, watching everybody react to him getting drafted was really cool. This next one is Derek Harmon. He is a defensive tackle who was selected 21st overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers. After Harmon was drafted, he rushed to the hospital to share his accomplishment with his mom. The sources I found says that he did make it and got to tell his mom about getting drafted, but a couple of hours later, Harmon's mom, Tiffany Sane, passed away. She'd been on life support after a debilitating stroke in 2022 that left her partially paralyzed. Despite these challenges, she was a constant source of support and motivation for her son, and Harmon used his college endorsement earnings to purchase a wheelchair-accessible van for her. In the words of Derek Harmon, "She's the reason why I'm here. She's the one that did everything for me to get to this point. I love you, Mom. Everything I do is for you. I'm forever grateful." It's very heartwarming that she seemed to like hang on, you know, until her son got drafted. So I just thought that was really special, and I wish him nothing but success in his NFL career. And the last story that I'm going to talk about is a tough one. Trigger warning for death and suicide. We're going to talk about Kyren Lacy. So Kyren Lacy is a wide receiver who played for the University of Louisiana at Lafayette and LSU. Kyren Lacy was an incredible wide receiver for LSU. Upon researching the story, I watched a lot of his film, and man, this kid was a blast to watch. Like, his highlights are crazy. I wish his life had turned out differently and we could have heard his name called the other night. But instead, I'm talking about a very different fate that Lacy met that ended in his younger brother speaking at his funeral. On December 17th, 2024, Lacy was involved in a fatal hit-and-run accident on Louisiana Highway 20. According to state police, Lacy was speeding in his Dodge Charger, illegally passing multiple vehicles in a no-passing zone. This maneuver led to a chain reaction crash, resulting in the death of a 78-year-old man. After this incident, the NFL revoked Lacy's invitation to the 2025 NFL Draft, and the NFL was criticized for making this decision before his trial has happened. This is one of those things, like, I don't even really want to get into the semantics of it because it doesn't do anything. Reports indicate that on April 12th, 2025, he had allegedly discharged a firearm during a domestic dispute, leading to a police chase. The police chase tragically led to Kyren Lacy crashing his car and committing suicide by gunshot wound. This is an incredibly tragic tale. 2 lives were lost at the end of the day. And my heart goes out to Herman Hall, who is the 78-year-old man who ultimately passed away because of Lacy's decision to drive recklessly and flee the scene. My heart also goes out to the Lacy family who lost their son. And I want to end the episode with a clip of Kyren Lacy's little brother talking about who his brother was to him. Thank you so much for watching.
That's on a little half roll. He'll fire again, and Lacy, I think he got a foot. Lacy in motion. Nussmeier looking that way. Now on the wheel, throws it up. Lacy caught it.
Nussmeier in and have some experience is huge for Tiger Nation.
Nussmeier. Nussmeier looking. He connects. Kyren Lacy over the.
To say is how much I love my brother.
Talk to him, baby. Talk to him, Kyrie. Talk to him for Kyrie. Talk to him, baby. Tell him how much you love your brother. Tell him.
He was the best brother I ever had. I thank God that he supported him. Thank y'all for supporting my brother. And I love all y'all.
The speed maybe of his teammate Hilton, but physical, strong, just so good at contested catches, so savvy.